What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, MATCHROOM CEO and promoter, Eddie Hearn, he states that legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter, Bob Arum, is not equipped to promote and negotiate the super fight between his fighter, undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, who is currently the WBO welterweight world champion and is widely considered by many to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence Bud Crawford, and undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely recognized as top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Errol the Truth Spence Jr. This is what makes for the super fight, is because you have 2 undefeated fighters in the same division, and they're both top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. The last time we had a scenario of this magnitude was Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. So Bob Arum, he stated on Barbershop Conversations, he stated that maybe in order to get a fight done and a deal done, maybe we have to go a 40-40 split and the winner takes the other 20%, right? That would make it a 60-40 split in favor of the winner. Now, we know Errol Spence, he was stating that he wants to have a 60-40 split in his favor because he's been doing the bigger numbers. He did 3 straight pay-per-views in which he fought Mikey Garcia, 350,000 pay-per-views. He fought Sean Porter, and that did 325,000 pay-per-views. And he fought his last fight against Danny Garcia, did 310,000 pay-per-views. With that said, Terence Crawford, he did 2 pay-per-views against Victor Postol. It reportedly did 60,000 pay-per-views. And then he did another pay-per-view with Amir King Kong, and it did 150,000 pay-per-views. So combined, it did 210,000 pay-per-views. So if you take the lowest pay-per-view number with Errol Spence at 310,000, well, that did more than 2 of Terence Crawford's pay-per-views combined at 210. He did 100,000 more pay-per-views than Terence Crawford in 1 fight than Terence Crawford has done in 2 fights. So Errol Spence is just in 2020, he did the highest live gate in the sport of boxing as well. So with that said, Errol Spence is stating that the proof is in the pudding. Nonetheless, he asked for a 60-40 split. Terence Crawford said 50-50, and we've been at a stalemate. With that said, Eddie Hearn, he's stating that somebody in Terence Crawford's team needs to tell him that this is a good deal, that he needs to not let his ego play a major part in not letting this fight take place. He says this is simply a case of egos, and his team around him, and somebody needs to pull him to the side and inform him that egos should not play a part. He says we have this is a scenario where Terence Crawford is looking at what Errol Spence is making opposed to what he's actually making, and being satisfied with what he's making opposed to what Errol Spence is making. He says it's just like if we have $200 million on the table, $210 million on the table. So he says that, you know, it's simply a case where if we had $210 million on the table, one guy's getting $100 million, the other guy's getting $110 million. Well, the guy, he says, and he was referencing, he didn't specify Terence Crawford, but he was saying, it's like Terence Crawford is looking and saying, oh, Errol Spence is getting $110 million and I'm only getting 100. No, there's no fight. Opposed to him just looking and saying, wow, I'm getting $100 million for this fight, a super fight, and it's going to help build my legacy, my profile, and my Hall of Fame status, right? So he says that, when Terence Crawford was on Arum BARAK show on SiriusXM Radio, shouts out to Arum BARAK on SiriusXM Radio, he stated that when he was on SiriusXM Radio and he was asked about would he take the 50-50 split if Errol Spence then came to him and offered it, he said that wouldn't get it done because the fight has passed him now. Eddie Hearn is saying that, he said, that's mad. He said, there's no way a 50-50 split shouldn't get it done. There's no way 60-40 split shouldn't get it done. He says that, Bob Arum making such a statement as 40-40 with the winner taking 20, that's never been done in the sport of boxing. And it seems like Bob Arum may be slipping a little bit, right? He said anything is possible, but that's never been done, and it's more than likely never going to happen. So this is a super fight within the sport of boxing, and Terence Crawford's team is not identifying what is on the table, what they're at stake, what's at stake, what they stand to gain from fighting Errol Spence. So Eddie Hearn, he's definitely, experienced in this area, because Eddie Hearn, he let a super fight go by the wayside himself with the super fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua for undisputed. That was a super fight. That was the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. And at one point in time, Anthony Joshua stated that he wanted $50 million. Deontay Wilder came up with the $50 million. Then Anthony Joshua said he could not accept the $50 million because he has, other sponsors and things of that nature that won't allow him to take the $50 million. And he was not going to come to the U.S., the United States, and fight in the U.S. Because he owed it to the U.K., United Kingdom fans to fight undisputed in the U.K. Now, at this current time, after Anthony Joshua, he ended up coming to the States, and one of the biggest upsets in the history of sport of boxing, losing to Andy Ruiz Jr. In June 1st of 2019 at Madison Square Garden. One of the biggest upsets. He was dropped 4 times and stopped in that fight. Well, now Anthony Joshua is heading into, according to Eddie Hearn, he could be heading into a massive undisputed all-UK British showdown between undefeated 2-time heavyweight world champion, British superstar boxer Tyson Fury. But that fight, they're talking about it not even taking place in the UK. So after all, Anthony Joshua won't have, if he fought Tyson Fury, it's not going to be in the UK. So you have the 2 biggest superstars in the UK for undisputed in the heavyweight division. It's been over 100 years since they had such, and it's not even going to take place on UK soil. So they dropped the ball with the Deontay Wilder situation, because that was at the time considered the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. Here we have another situation where we have the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, and Eddie Hearn is 1,000% correct. I don't always agree with Eddie Hearn, but in this case, he's 1,000% correct. He says that, it's egos preventing the sport of boxing from getting the super fight. Eddie Hearn admitted that this is the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. And you have 2 guys at the peak of their career. Terence Crawford is 33 years of age. Errol Spence is 31 years of age. Like I said, they're both undefeated. It would be multiple belts on the line, and it's already considered a super fight. So, this fight cannot go by the wayside. So he says that the fact that Bob Arum is saying that, a 40-40 split, the winner take 20. He says Bob Arum is essentially admitting that they're not going to make this fight come to fruition. So he stated that, that's not good for the sport of boxing. There needs to be, some sort of, mediator, involved. He stated that, somebody in Terence Crawford's team needs to pull him to the side. He says in this case, here's where you need somebody to pull Terence Crawford to the side and let Terence Crawford know that, these numbers are suffice numbers. Okay. This is what Eddie Hearn had to say. So here we have the case where Eddie Hearn says, quote, he says, that's almost like admitting the fight is not going to happen. This is what Eddie Hearn had to say. Right. He says, responding to Bob Arum saying 40-20, he said, when has that ever happened in the sport of boxing? How many times have we heard that? He says, winner takes all. It's kind of like repeat conversation, right? He said, I guess it can happen, meaning 40-40, winner takes 20. He said, but it never will. I love Terence Crawford, and I know him better than I know Errol Spence, who I like as well. I just don't understand the whole thing. He says, with Terence Crawford, even on your show, because he was on the Arum BARAK show on SiriusXM Radio. Shout out to Arum BARAK on SiriusXM Radio. Terence Crawford, BARAK asked him about, taking a 50-50 split. That's when he initially said it. And Eddie Hearn is on there now. And Eddie Hearn states that even when Terence Crawford was on your show and you asked him about the 50-50 split, he said it wouldn't work for the Spence fight. He said, I'm like, what? It does. He says it goes back to it's all ego, isn't it? Let me give you a situation, right? And then he goes, I would say, how much money is in that fight? I don't know. Call it 30 million. He says, for the fight. So Terence isn't happy with 15 million apiece. So he's saying, imagine if it was a pot of 30 million. He's just hypothetically speaking. He says both sides would get 15 million. He says, so it gets to the point where once you're getting what you're happy with and you think you're going to win, and this is the fight that's going to turn you into a superstar, this is going to turn you into a Hall of Famer. Do you really care if the guy is getting a couple of million more than you? He says what they'll say is, how much money will you get? How much money is he getting? Great news, Errol, you're getting 20 million. What he get? That's the first question is going to be asked. So he's saying that, Errol Spence get 20 million. The first question is going to be asked is, how much is the other guy getting? Okay. He says it really all comes down to ego. You could go to Errol Spence or Terence Crawford. You could go, I'm going to give you 100 million for this fight. And the first question is not going to be, I'm getting a lot of money. The question is going to be, how much is the other guy getting? 110 million he's getting. The fight is off, right? He says that's what we're talking about here. That's when you need a good arm around you, a good voice in your ear, a voice of reason, and a voice of sense, just to say, guys, if it's the right fight and the right money, don't lose it because the alternative is what, right? And I agree with him 1,000%, okay? Because what is the alternative, right? If neither guy is going to secure. Now, in the case of Errol Spence, it seems like he's on the verge of securing the Yordenis Ugas fight. That's a unification bout. That's about where, he'll be a 3 belt holder. So it makes sense, okay? And if Terence Crawford was going to go into a mega showdown with Manny Pacquiao, that's a legend, it's an icon in the sport. It's understandable. Now, Manny Pacquiao no longer has a world championship, so it's lost some of his luster. But it's understandable. He's been trying to secure that fight for the better part of 6 years. So that's understandable. But for the most part, after that, where do both guys go, okay? They need each other. It's the super fight. The sport of boxing needs this fight. It cannot go by the wayside, okay? So Eddie Hearn is 1,000% correct when he makes these statements. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon, and get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hey, this is Ebony Bridges, Blonde Bomber, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.